A disease is expected to kill 600 people unless you act. You have 2 programs to choose from. Program A will save 200 people. Program B has a 1/3 probability that all 600 people will be saved, and a 2/3 probability that no one will be saved. Which do you choose? Hold your answer. Do not revise it. Do not hedge. You chose one. You felt something shift, a preference, a leaning, a sense that one option was obviously better. That feeling is real. It came from somewhere, and in a moment, you will discover exactly where. Now, the same disease. The same 600 people. The same 2 programs, written in a different language. Program C means 400 people will die. Program D has a 1/3 probability that nobody will die, and a 2/3 probability that all 600 people will die. Which do you choose? Answer again. Now compare your 2 answers. Program A and Program C are identical. 200 saved out of 600 means 400 die. Program B and Program D are identical. The same gamble, the same odds, the same body count. The only thing that changed was the frame, and your preference reversed. When the frame said saved, you chose certainty. When the frame said die, you chose the gamble. You did not change your values. You did not receive new information. The frame changed, and the frame changed you. She counted the last 3. She had saved the last 3. The number felt like a surplus, a balance in an account she did not know she was keeping. I have saved the last 3. I can afford one risk. A narrow frame. Italy won. France lost. These are the same fact. The same event. The same score. But they are not the same sentence. Italy won is a story about triumph. France lost is a story about failure. The information is identical. The feeling is not. This is not a trick. It is a structural feature of language, of thought, of every decision you have ever made. Every outcome can be described as a gain or a loss. Every statistic can be presented as survival or mortality. Every policy can be framed as what you keep or what is taken away. And the frame is never neutral, because you are never neutral. Your brain treats gains and losses as different substances, and it responds to them with different machinery. A patient is considering surgery. The surgeon describes the odds. The first version, the 90-day survival rate is 90%. The second version, there is a 10% mortality rate in the first 90 days. 90% survive and 10% die are the same number. The same surgery. The same anesthesia. The same room. But when patients heard 90% survive, 84% chose surgery. When they heard 10% die, only 50% did. You might assume this is a problem of unsophisticated patients, people who lack training, who do not understand statistics, who are overwhelmed by fear. The same study was run on physicians, experienced physicians. The results were the same. Doctors who heard 90% survival recommended surgery. Doctors who heard 10% mortality hesitated. The frame did not merely affect the patient's choice. It affected the expert's recommendation. The frame is not a veil over the decision. The frame is the decision. Germany's organ donation rate is 12%. Austria's is nearly 100%. The countries share a border. They share a culture. They do not share a form. In Germany, the form asks you to check a box if you want to donate. Most people do not check it. In Austria, the form asks you to check a box if you do not want to donate. Most people do not check it. The preference did not change. The default changed. The same inertia, the same path of least resistance, the same human reluctance to pick up a pen and make an active choice. That identical impulse produces 12% in one country and nearly 100% in the next. This is not manipulation, No one is being lied to. No information is being withheld. The question is the same, but the architecture of the question, which option requires action and which requires inaction, determines the answer for an entire nation. The frame is not decoration. The frame is architecture. And whoever designs the form designs the outcome. Return to the disease. 600 people. 2 programs. The same question, asked twice. Kahneman and Tversky gave this problem to 2 groups. When the frame said saved, 72% chose program A, this or an option. When the frame said die, 78% chose program D, the gamble. The same population. The same disease. The same arithmetic. Opposite choices. Not because the options changed, because the words changed. This is the mechanism you felt at the start of this episode. You were not deciding between programs. You were responding to a frame. The word saved activated the gain region of prospect theory, the concave curve, the certainty preference. The word die activated the loss region, the convex curve, the risk-seeking impulse. The frame did not inform your decision. The frame constructed it. Kahneman and Tversky's conclusion was stark. Framing should not be viewed as an intervention that masks or distorts an underlying preference. In the situations they studied, there was no underlying preference to be masked. The preference was created by the frame. There is no view from nowhere. There is no frameless window. Every choice arrives inside a sentence, and the sentence is the architecture. Richard Thaler posed a question. You have tickets to a basketball game tonight. It is an hour's drive. A blizzard has started. Do you go? No. The variation. The tickets were free. A friend gave them to you. Same game, same blizzard, same drive. Do you go? Most people who paid for the tickets will brave the storm. Most people who received them for free will stay home. The game is the same. The blizzard is the same. The risk is the same. The experience of sitting in the arena will be identical, regardless of how the ticket was acquired. But the ticket buyer has an open account. Money was spent. If the game is not attended, the account closes at a loss. The free ticket holder has no such account. There is nothing to lose by staying warm. This is mental accounting. The mind does not maintain a single balance sheet. It maintains dozens, separate accounts for entertainment, for food, for savings, for windfalls. Money in one account is not fungible with money in another. $100 bonus and $100 paycheck feel different, even though they spend the same. And the accounts do not merely track spending. They track pain. Closing an account at a loss is felt as a failure. The drive through the blizzard is not about the basketball game. It is about not wasting the money. The sunk cost, irrecoverable, irrelevant to the future, controls the decision because the mental account demands to be settled. A company has invested $50 million in a project. The project is behind schedule. To complete it will cost $60 million more. Meanwhile, a competing division has proposed an alternative project. Better technology, lower cost, higher expected return. But it would mean abandoning the first project entirely. The rational calculation is simple. The $50 million is gone. It cannot be recovered regardless of what happens next. The question is only, which project, starting now, with the money that remains, will produce the better outcome? The answer is the new project. The evidence is clear. But the executive reaches for the thick folder. The sunk cost fallacy is not a failure of arithmetic. It is a failure of accounting. The $50 million sits in a mental ledger, and that ledger demands resolution. To abandon the project is to close the account at a loss, to write the words total loss beside a number with 8 digits. The mind recoils. Not because the decision is wrong, but because the feeling of waste is unbearable. Good money follows bad. Not because the executive is foolish, but because the account is open, and open accounts ache. Mr. Brown almost never picks up hitchhikers. Today, he does. He is robbed. Mr. Smith picks up hitchhikers frequently. Today he does. He is robbed. Who feels greater regret? 88% of respondents, said Mr. Brown. The man who deviated from his routine. The man who made the exception. Not because his loss was greater. The robbery was identical, but because the alternative was more available. Mr. Brown can see the world in which he drove past. Mr. Smith cannot, because picking up hitchhikers is what he does. Regret is not proportional to loss. Regret is proportional to the gap between what happened and what almost happened. And that gap is widest when the action was unusual, when the person deviated from the default, from the routine, from the version of themselves they normally are. This is why action produces more regret than inaction. Paul owns stock in Company A. He considers switching to Company B but does not. He would have made $1,200. George owns stock in Company B. He switches to Company A. He loses $1,200. The financial outcome is the same. Both men end up with stock in Company A. Both have missed a $1,200 gain. But 92% of respondents say George feels more regret. Because George acted, because action creates a counterfactual that glows. The world in which you did nothing, the world in which you stayed. Inaction has no such ghost. It is the default, okay? And the default does not haunt you. This asymmetry is not irrational. It is architectural. The mind punishes deviation more than repetition, movement more than stillness, commission more than omission. And this punishment shapes decisions before they are made, not by forbidding risk, but by loading the cost of action with a regret surcharge that inaction does not carry. An investor holds two stocks. One has gained 30% since purchase. The other has lost 30%. She needs cash. She sells one. She sells the winner. This is the disposition effect, documented by Terrance Odean across tens of thousands of individual trading accounts. Investors are 50% more likely to sell a stock that has gained value than one that has lost. The pattern is robust. It is consistent. It is exactly backwards. Tax law alone should reverse the behavior. Selling losers generates a tax deduction, but the mental accounts override the tax code. Selling the winner closes an account at a gain. Selling the loser closes an account at a loss. And closing at a loss is not merely financially disadvantageous. It is emotionally final. It converts a paper loss, a wound that might heal, into a realized loss. A fact, an entry in the permanent ledger. The investor is not making a financial decision. She is managing feelings, and the feelings have a ledger of their own. Thomas Schelling posed a question that has no comfortable answer. Should the child tax exemption be larger for the rich than for the poor? The answer feels obvious. No. That would be regressive. Unfair. The poor need the benefit more. Now, reframe. Should a childless poor family pay the same tax surcharge as a childless rich family? Again, the answer feels obvious. No. The poor family cannot afford the same penalty. But you cannot hold both positions. A tax exemption for having children is mathematically identical to a surcharge for not having them. If the exemption is smaller for the rich, the surcharge is smaller for the rich. If the surcharge is larger for the poor, the exemption is larger for the poor. You cannot make the exemption favor the poor and the surcharge favor the poor. They are the same policy described in opposite frames. Schelling's paradox is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a demonstration that the frame is not removable. There is no neutral description of the tax code. There is no wording that is not a frame. You must choose one, exemption or surcharge, and the one you choose will determine what feels fair. The frame does not distort reality. The frame is reality. Or at least, the only reality your preferences can access. Sarah Lichtenstein and Paul Slovic placed bets in front of their subjects. Bet A. a small chance at a large payoff. Bet B, a near certain small payoff. When asked which bet they would prefer to play, most people chose bet B, the near certainty, the safe option. Then they were asked a different question. How much would you sell each bet for? What is the lowest price you would accept? They priced bet A higher. The same person, the same session. Choose B, price A higher. This is a preference reversal, a direct violation of the assumption that you know what you want and that your knowledge is consistent. When economists David Grether and Charles Plott heard about this finding, they set out to demolish it. They were certain the psychologists had made a methodological error. They designed an experiment specifically to eliminate every possible artifact, every procedural trick, every demand characteristic, every incentive-compatible confound. They confirmed the finding in every condition. The reversal occurs because choosing and pricing are different frames. When you choose, you compare the bets side by side, and the near certainty of bet B dominates your attention. When you price, you translate each bet into dollars, and the large payoff of bet A dominates the conversion. The frame of the question determines which feature is salient, and the salient feature determines the answer. You do not have a preference that is then expressed through choosing or pricing. The act of choosing creates one preference. The act of pricing creates another. They are not the same preference, viewed from two angles. They are two different preferences, manufactured by two different frames. A team at University College London put the Asian disease problem inside a brain scanner. When subjects chose, in accordance with the frame, certainty in the gain frame, the gamble in the loss frame, the emotional brain, the fast responder, the system that reads the frame before the conscious mind has parsed the numbers. When subjects resisted the frame, choosing the gamble in the gain frame, or certainty in the loss frame, the anterior cingulate cortex was active, the conflict detector, the system that recognizes the frame as a frame and flags it as a trap. And in the small number of subjects who were consistently frame-independent, who gave the same answer regardless of wording, a third region dominated. The prefrontal cortex, the executive, the override. 3 systems, 3 responses to the same words. The amygdala obeys the frame. The anterior cingulate detects the frame. The prefrontal cortex overrides the frame. And in most people, most of the time, the amygdala wins. Not because it is stronger, but because it is faster. It has processed the word saved or the word die before the prefrontal cortex has finished reading the sentence. The frame does not deceive you. The frame arrives before you. Paul Samuelson, the Nobel laureate, once offered a colleague a bet. A fair coin would be tossed. Heads, you win $200. Tails, you lose $100. A positive expected value. A rational bet? The colleague refused, but then added, I would take it if you offered me 100 of those bets. Samuelson found this irrational. If you would not accept 100, because each bet is a separate gamble. But the colleague's intuition was correct in a different way. One bet is a narrow frame, a single event that could go badly. 100 bets is a broad frame, a distribution, a curve that bends toward the expected value with each repetition. The narrow frame feels like a coin flip. The broad frame feels like an investment. They are the same arithmetic. They are different architecture. Thaler told a story about a CEO who addressed his 25 division heads. He offered each of them the same risky bet, a project with a 50-50 chance of a large gain or a moderate loss. Not one division head would accept it individually. But the CEO wanted all 25 to accept because the CEO saw the broad frame, 25 independent bets that collectively would almost certainly produce a gain, while each division head saw only the narrow frame. One bet, one loss, one career consequence. Broad framing is a tool. Check your portfolio once a quarter. not once a day. Set risk policies. Always take the highest deductible. Never buy the extended warranty, so that each individual decision does not need to be felt as a separate loss. Think like a trader, not a gambler. But the tool requires effort. The narrow frame is the default, and the default, as we have seen, almost always wins. Return to the disease. 600 people. 2 programs. You answered twice. Your answers contradicted each other, and both answers felt right when you gave them. This is not a failure of your intelligence. This is the architecture of your mind. The frame arrives before deliberation. The words construct the feeling. The feeling constructs the choice, and by the time you have chosen, the frame has vanished, invisible, like the window you look through and never see. Kahneman wrote that framing should not be viewed as an intervention that masks or distorts an underlying preference. There is no underlying preference. The frame is not a lens over reality. The frame is the only reality available, and you cannot step outside it. You cannot choose without a frame. You can only choose which frame you stand inside, and even that choice has a frame. Return to the hospital. She counted the last 3. She counted them as saved. She did not count the ones she lost, not because she forgot them, but because the mental account only tracks the current streak. 3 saves. A surplus. Permission to take a risk. But the streak is a frame. The 3 patients were not deposits in a bank. Their survival was not a currency she could spend. The narrow frame converted 3 separate outcomes into a balance, and the balance told her she was ahead. She was not ahead. She was not behind. The ledger does not exist. But the feeling of being ahead, that feeling made the next decision for her. The frame changed everything, but she could not see the frame. She saw only the patient, the odds, the streak, and she trusted herself. She trusted her gut. She had 15 years. But 15 years of what? She trusted her gut. She had 15 years. But 15 years of what?